Welcome to Franchise Focus. I'm Laura Blackmore, your host, and a franchise consultant with over a decade experience in franchising. Franchising isn't one size fits all, and this podcast helps focus on what truly matters. Each week, we pull back the curtain with top industry experts, whether you're exploring your first franchise or expanding your portfolio. Let's dive in. Welcome to Franchise Focus. Today's guest is Aaron Harper, CEO of Rolling Suds, one of the fastest growing home service franchises in the country. If you spend any time on LinkedIn in the franchising world, you've seen Aaron's name. He's a prolific and thoughtful content creator, sharing daily posts that challenge the status quo, from responsible franchising to unit level economics to what it really takes to help franchisees succeed. Aaron is also the host of the Scaling podcast, where he goes long form with operators, founders, and acquisition entrepreneurs, helping uncover how companies actually grow. Today, we'll get into the realities of building a fast growth brand, the power of honest content, and how Rolling Suds is thinking beyond just service level franchise success. Let's get into it.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura, for having me on. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to talking with you. And if you could just give us a little background about you. You have a rich background, but some of your franchise history, and if you want to go before that too.
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California. I've been in the franchise industry since 2017. Prior to that, I had a former life as a failed Hollywood executive, working with actors, writers, and directors, and realizing that's not something I want to do long term, and wanting something that had more meaning. A friend of mine who suggested I get into franchise development. I initially told him I didn't want to build McDonald's or Wendy's restaurants, and he then told me and corrected me that franchising is much bigger than McDonald's or Wendy's. And I learned that 1-800-GOT-JUNK is a franchise, ChemDry is a franchise, Stanley Steamer is a franchise. I didn't even know franchisees were independent business owners. And but I loved the idea of helping people become business owners. I thought that was a really cool and honorable thing to do. Started working at a carpet cleaning brand, helped grow that brand by a couple hundred units in 3 years. That business was bought by Belfour, which is a big kind of restoration company that wanted to really build kind of this franchise division, but they didn't have a tremendous amount of experience in franchising prior to buying the company I worked for. So they bought us. But then they put us in charge of their franchise division, and we grew that company from 3 brands to 12 brands before I left. And one of the brands during that time that I was most intimately involved in was a drywall repair brand. We did a turnaround of that concept, brand new logo, tech stack, marketing stack, restructured the entire brand, and grew it from 98 units to 323 units in 2 years, becoming one of the fastest growing home service franchises at that time, and the 13th fastest growing franchise in the country for a couple of years in a row. So and we were able to do a lot of that with you and your guys' team at Francer, which was really great. So then I was like, wait a minute, this is really cool. I like doing this, but I don't own this company that I'm building or any of these companies that I'm building. And so I was like, what if I was the franchisor? And what would that look like? And the company that I was working for offered me a killer job to take on a new brand from scratch and help take that brand from a one single location business to a multi-location kind of franchise empire. And they were going to pay me really well to do that and give me a title with the word president in it. And like the lunatic entrepreneur that I am, I said, no, thank you. I can do this on my own. And I turned it down, and I went out and sought out about 24 different businesses to franchise, all in the residential and commercial services space. And I met the founders of Rolling Suds in September of 2022. It was the best brand that I looked at. As you've met the founders, they're incredible people. 35-year-old power washing company, Pennsylvania, started with just a guy in a truck, and is now a, huge, $2+ million business. I knew that I could replicate that business. So I acquired the brand in January of 2023, partnering with the Wendling family to then go and build the biggest power washing brand. It was set out with the goal to build the biggest power washing brand in the world. And now we have 308 units sold, with over 100 open in 34 states. And we've done that since basically June of 2023.
That's a mouthful, and that's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible success. And if you had to attribute that, or what would you attribute the pace to which you grew that, and maybe what surprised you the most about that process?
Yeah. So I always knew I was going to grow. We were going to grow it fast, just due to my background in franchise development and kind of understanding how to like identify and sign up franchise owners. What I didn't know is how much of a demand there would be for this kind of higher level clientele as franchisees. We set out to want to seek out kind of higher level operators, and we made our capital requirement higher for that reason, so that we could bring people in who could really build an asset versus like just owning a job. But what we found is there was such a demand in the commercial space for power washing, so serving commercial customers big jobs, that was really an unmet demand in the power washing space. So that then attracted more higher level operators for the franchise, because they're like, can get, cleaning a one house for $300, but like, what about one hospital for $35,000? And so it really changed. Like I initially thought it was going to be like 20% commercial, 80% residential going into this, because that's how the model was founded 30 plus years ago. Like they didn't do any more than
Hmm.
20% commercial for 29 years of business. What it ended up being is immediately the other way, in a lot of markets, 70, 80% commercial, 20 to 30% residential. And so kind of the demand necessary in the marketplace versus the demand and people that we were targeting really kind of like elevated the brand even more, than it already was, because we brought in better, great franchisees. What surprised me most is the commercial side of the business from a consumer standpoint was such in high demand that we were able to then attract even higher level operators than we thought, because people saw this opportunity to build this large commercial power washing business that frankly you just can't get with any other power washing franchise or any other franchise that offers power washing.
Yeah. In fact, I think you've called this a blue collar business with white collar economics.
Yeah, yeah, it's
That's a
a
term.
yeah, we're bringing white collar professionals to a blue collar business, and it's really easy to win that way.
What do you think's attributed to that flip flop and actual being able to get into that commercial side so quickly?
I mean, a lot of it has to do with the equipment, that we're just like fundamentally built differently than most power washing companies, and the speed in
Hmm.
which we can do the job. Like commercial customers want it done better, faster, stronger. And that's just how we're built. So our franchisees overinvest in equipment, and then we teach them a proprietary kind of cleaning process that allows them to do jobs significantly faster than their competitors. Then they have two team members on every truck, and they're really overseeing the growth of the business versus like actually doing the power washing themselves. So they're able to take a much more kind of sophisticated approach to just owning the business.
Hmm.
So I think it's speed. I think it's efficiency. I think these larger companies, especially as we've seen, as we've now entered into national accounts, they want a professional organization that they can rely on getting the same level of service from one market to the next, because it just doesn't exist currently in the power washing space.
That's a good point. Can you talk to a little bit more about some of those bigger clients and or your national account?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can't talk specifically about the brands just because but like big name, big box QSRs and we've gotten hundreds and hundreds of QSRs on a recurring basis for franchise owners, which is really cool.
Yeah, and you're in
Shopping
so many
centers.
locations now. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Shopping centers. We've gotten a lot of, yeah. So we're really pushing that really hard, because very similar to from like on a local level for franchise owners stepping in and seeing there's this big commercial demand that needs to be met by a professional power washing company. We're seeing the
Hmm.
same thing on a national scale. And so capturing kind of national market share as it relates to like winning these big national accounts has just been incredible. And it's great. We call a franchise, like we had a franchise owner that signed up in South Florida. And, we did the announcement internally to the team. And Brian Jr.'s like, hey, have him call me. I know he doesn't know how to estimate jobs yet, but like we have 23 QSRs that we need him to bid on. And don't worry, I'll tell him I'll tell him what he needs to pay or whatever for the job. So he just signed his contract, and then he's calling Brian Jr. and saying, what, I guess I'll go bid this job. He has no idea and we just helped him. It was great.
My gosh, how I can't even imagine how that's got to be a little intimidating too, though.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
we help them out with, I mean, like,
yeah.
you make this big investment in a brand. You
Hmm.
have no idea if it's going to work out, despite how great the conversation has gone. You're still It's still scary. And then you get a call from the co-founder that's like, I need you to give a bid on 23 QSRs and I'll tell you how to price it. And like, I'll help you win it, which is like
And I'll help you out.
an amazing opportunity for anyone who buys into a franchise.
Absolutely. Yeah, and talking about the variety of, I'm sure it's all different backgrounds, but what are you finding that people, and I'm sure it's transformed as you've grown this brand in the last 2.5 years. I mean, you've done a lot of, I'm sure, edits and changes to your process, but what are you finding works best for people at the very beginning versus then how they, whether it's allocation of their time or what do you
Yeah,
find
yeah.
helping them be
So
successful?
we've looked at this basically like what's the highest and best use of a franchise owner's time, and how do we build in systems for all of the other things to then be taken off their plate as quickly and as systematically as possible. And so each franchise owner is required to have two full-time technicians, and the first full-time technician is like a lead technician slash like general manager in training. That person effectively runs the truck, and the goal is to help them understand the truck, then get them to elevate out of and into kind of more of a general manager role, so that when they add that second truck, now that lead technician has 4 employees underneath him that work on those two trucks. However, because all of our franchise owners come in as multi-unit franchise owners, we don't
Right.
do any single unit deals. If someone buys 3 territories or is approved for more than 3 territories, they will now have a residential salesperson with them at training. So they have to hire that person prior to going to training, and they bring that person with them to training. And the reason is because going back to like what is the highest and best use of a franchise owner's time? It is going out and talking to commercial partnerships and relationships, because that
Okay.
takes 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months to really build a healthy commercial sales pipeline. And some of these jobs that we'll bid on, it'll take 12 months for that job to be booked because it doesn't fit into this year's budget. It fits in next year's budget. And paying a salesperson to do that on the commercial side, if that goes wrong, it's traumatic. It affects the business really badly. So we want the owner to own that process, at least initially. And we try to train them to understand, hey, we don't want you necessarily knocking on doors for residential, but you do need someone who's going to be making their residential everything. It makes it everything. They're going to respond to warm leads. They're going to go knock 5 up, 5 down. They're going to drop in at referral partners. Like, and that person can just focus on making sure cash is coming in on the residential side, because there's a steady cash balance, like cash flow from residential, whereas commercial is much lumpier in terms of the revenue. So with the lumpiness of commercial and with the long sales cycle, it is the highest and best use of franchisees' time to focus on that piece of the business, and then to hire and scale for the other pieces of the business.
Okay, fantastic. So did you say all franchisees are starting off with
A minimum of 2 territories, which
2 territories? But yeah, do they?
begins 2 trucks, but they don't open that second truck till within the first 9 months. So they're
Okay,
going to buy
okay,
another territory, and then in 9 months or less, they're going to expand to their second truck, which some we've seen expand while they're at training, and some we've seen expands.
okay, okay. So you've been incredibly vocal about not growing at all costs, though, and talked about responsible franchising. What do you mean by that, and how does that show up in your decision making?
Yeah. So I think like a lot of what franchising is just a proper expectation setting. So like where I see the biggest disconnect happen is on the sales process to like when they open the business. And sales is incentivized very well to sell franchises. And oftentimes franchise sales are outsourced to outside organizations where like they're really incentivized really well. Like that's their business model, right?
Hmm.
And for us, like we're very, very selective about who comes into our system, and we're ruthless in expectation setting in the sales process. If someone's like, I want to keep my job, work 15 hours a week, hire a manager, and like wait for you to bring me leads, it's like, yeah, not only are you not right for Rolling Suds, it is likely that you're not right for like any business ever. Fortunately, with the way that our relationships are with FranServe and other networks, is like we're very candid and transparent in like what it takes for franchise owners to be successful in our business. And so we spend all of our time on the sales process setting the right expectations with the right people. And a lot of that then sets people up to either say, no, I don't want that. That sounds really hard. Or I do that, like you guys are honest and like And so what we're able to do is
Mhm.
identify who we're looking for, be very honest with them, and then have them decide whether or not they want to move forward, and us decide whether or not we want them to move forward. And that's really, I think, a big part of responsible franchising for me is like, how do we um how do we make sure that like the right people are coming in, they have the right expectations, and they have the right amount of capital. So most franchises will say, hey, we want the least amount of like item 7 so that we get the most amount of candidates. We're like, no, this is what it takes to run the business, so we're going to have a much higher item 7 because we want to make sure that people have cash to like get through growing a business. And then in addition to that, like our
Right.
model is like you've got to invest in your second truck. You're going to hire more people. Like, you're not drawing $150,000 salary out of the business for your first 18. And if you think that this isn't the right thing, like you're going to put every single last dollar mostly back into the business so you can get it to 3 or 4 trucks, because that is what makes the business worth investing in. Don't, like if you just want to have one truck in one territory, like you don't need us. Go start a power washing company on your own. Like we're trying to help you build an asset that has value. And so a lot of it just goes around like just being completely candid and transparent in what it takes to be successful and grow a business. And it turns away a lot of the people that might buy other franchises and then end up being disappointed.
Right. Right. But I think it's excellent, and you've built a culture. I'm sure that's rich and strong in your organization with very successful people.
Thank you.
If you had to identify any specific qualities of some of your top producers, what would you say they are?
Franchise owners, right? Not team members, franchise owners. So you hear this word thrown out a lot in the franchise industry, and it's grit. But like what does that truly mean? Like what does grit mean? Like it sounds like a great word, it's a buzzword. Basically means that they're not going to give up. And no matter what. And they're going to persevere no matter what. And that's a hard thing to teach someone, because you have to have almost like an unrealistic expectation and motivation of yourself and your abilities. And I do believe that that's what it takes to grow a business. You need like we have great systems, we have great technology partners, we have great vendors that generate leads. It doesn't matter. Like you still have to be able to get through the mental gymnastics and the risk associated with running a business. I mean, you've done it with your business. I've done it with my business. Like there is so much uncertainty that goes along with running a business for the first 2 years that you just have to push through, and you have to push through. And oftentimes in franchises, like a lot of people come from a corporate background where they're used to getting an employee manual. They have a paycheck. They know that if they hit a certain amount of numbers, they get a bonus. If something's going wrong with the company, they can blame that department, and that's that department's fault. When you become a business owner, you're the last person to get paid. You can't blame other people because it's your business. And you have to be able to continue to show up despite all of those insecurities and challenges around it. And so when I think of like grit, I think of like true and like relentless determination to succeed despite all odds. And we try to pair those try to like kind of pocket franchisees together that have the same mindset so that they can elevate each other. And what often happens sometimes in a brand is like you'll have people that like are negative, and they'll like want more people to come and be negative with them. And like that just
Mhm.
doesn't do any good for them or for anyone at all. Like it's like you become who you surround yourself with. And so what we try to do is say, hey, like you're killing it, you're killing it, you're killing it, you're killing it, you're doing this right, you're doing that right. Let's take everything that you guys are doing and let's teach the rest of the system. And then actually let's just have you hop on this call and you teach the system about what you're doing that's working so well. And because honestly, franchisees listen to other franchisees probably more than they listen to their business coaches at the franchisor. Like, and that's okay. So we're just aware of that, and we're able to help kind of navigate and get people excited about like doing the right thing and actually growing like a great business. We've got a franchise owner who started in October of last year. He is on par, him and his business partner are on par with the Wendlings for the year. Like they're neck and neck in terms of revenue, literally.
And
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to get at too. Is you have to have that grit. You have to be able to push through, and you've got to have all these skills to understand. You've got to execute, but you need a strong franchise system to be able to go and do what the founders are doing, and you're doing. I mean,
totally.
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like not even year two. Like they're in year
That's
one.
really
It's wild.
incredible.
Yeah. So I try to think about the things that drive the business forward that also only I can do. And content was something that I was very against at the beginning. I was like, I've seen people post content. It doesn't seem authentic. I don't want to be on camera making myself feel good about like, and I just, the whole thing around it was like very uncomfortable to me. And I had friends that had been in marketing for a long time that were like, Aaron, like, you have a great story. You need to be telling it. You telling this great story will help your business grow. It'll help your franchisees. Like, just do it. And so for the first 10 months of the business, like, I didn't do it. I mean, I wrote stuff, but like, I wasn't behind the camera. I wasn't recording videos. Like, I didn't go all in. I just was like writing sometime on LinkedIn. And in December of 2023, I started writing regularly on X or Twitter or whatever. And in 2024, I made a point of doing it multiple times a day, every day. And then we upped it to like all the channels. And what ended up happening is it drove down our cost to acquire a franchisee, which is our biggest outgoing expense on a monthly basis, which then allowed me to invest that cost into recruiting a C suite of executives to help run my company who had experience doing this before. The content that I created also attracted these higher level executives because
Yeah.
they knew me and they had been following me for a long time. So they had a relationship with me. I'm telling the story for Rolling Suds out front in public for everyone to see. And so the amount of like impact I'm able to have on the business because of doing content far outweighs any discomfort I may have being behind the camera. And so I had to realize that like my opinion of whether or not the thing should be done is irrelevant because I actually am able to drive the business forward in a way that I wouldn't be able to do elsewhere by doing that. And so I will say it has been a tricky thing to navigate because a lot of what the content drives, like from a surface perspective, is franchise sales, right? Like we get more franchisees through the content that I put out. However, like what we're seeing now is we're attracting national accounts as well because people have been following me online
Oh, that's
on
great.
LinkedIn or whatever. But like content itself is this compounding asset that you build that has these different implications for helping you grow your company. And just in general, like we live in a society where people are online a lot. And so if you're able to capture the attention of people who will potentially buy the thing you sell, like it's just a very high leverage activity.
Yeah. What a great way of putting it. A compounding activity. Never thought of it that way.
Compounding asset. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or an asset. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about your new podcast, and which is another extension of that, I'm assuming. And I've listened to several of them. They're quite engaging, unique people. And so, how did that come about? And how did you start
Yeah.
choosing who you speak to?
So for me, like the podcasting piece, like I've been on a ton of podcasts. I love going on podcasts, but you know, the actual podcasting, like it's about the person I'm interviewing because I want to learn about them and I want to, and by learning about them, then I get to be better at myself. And we just had so much success from content and focusing on personal brand last year that we were like, hey, like how do we go deeper in doing this? And so I created the scaling podcast for that reason. And I also created the scaling podcast because um, there's not a ton of longer form entrepreneurial podcasts. We're entrepreneurs, very like we're all over the place. Like we want to jump from one thing to the other. But I was like, what
Mhm.
if I created like an hour 15 to 90 minute like deep dive on the entrepreneur that I'm interviewing and like why they do the things they do and like what drives them and like how do they actually really build their business and like let us be able to go down these kind of like different rabbit holes and kind of explore what that is like. And so we've been doing that and it's been a lot of fun. I think I've recorded like 16 or 17 episodes so far. We'll probably start releasing a couple a week on the back half of the year. It's just exciting and fun and I get to talk to really interesting people and ask them about their lives and then learn for free, which is killer.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's valuable information. I think you're really adding a tremendous amount of value out there. Coming at it from different angles, you're going to hear different sides of people's opinions on what makes a good industry, what makes a good franchisee, how you scale a business, etc.
Yeah, so Rolling Suds is an example. Like the reason why I'm building in public online is so people can see what it truly takes to take a company from one location to 300 locations or 300 units. And like the infrastructure that's necessary and creating an FAC and, doing development and how that's supposed to go, or at least how it's working for me. And so Rolling Suds is this example of what I think can be done in franchising, and we're building in public, which a lot of franchisors don't do. And I understand why they don't do it, but I do think that there's more upside than downside. And so as I talk about kind of how we're building the company, this then sets an example for other franchisors on how they plan to build the company, or how they could potentially plan to build their own company, and also provides this like candid transparency to franchisees, prospective franchisees, so they could follow me and say, oh, like, this is the person who started this company, this franchise, who's the majority shareholder in the company, out here talking every day about what he's doing and why. And I just think that's like a really big value add that a lot of people can get a lot of benefit from. And so that's why we make it such a priority.
Fantastic. Anything else that you want to wrap up with about your success? How you guys support franchisees, or
Yeah, I mean, listen,
what
like
makes Rolling Suds unique?
we have a full C-suite in place that has all done the role that they're in before. And we built that when we had like 25 franchisees operating. You know what I mean? Like it's like, so we're operating very much now like a very mature brand, but at a very early stage in the business. And I did that on purpose. That was part of the reason why I started this brand, is so that we could build for the future in mind versus like being more reactive, which some brands often do. And so we have a full executive team in place. We have over 20 team members and we have over 100 units open. And we've done that in 2 years. And so we're really just at the very beginning stages, and we have such a long way to go. And it's just, I'm so proud of what we're building.
No, as you should be. Well, I really appreciate your time. You've got a big event coming tomorrow, your third child. I really, really appreciate you squeezing this in before that. And
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see pictures of
I
your.
will send them to you for sure. Absolutely.
All right. You take care. Thanks so much, Aaron. Appreciate it. That's a wrap for this episode of Franchise Focus. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you're thinking about franchise ownership or want to learn more about the brands we discuss, connect with me on LinkedIn or visit my website at blackmorefranchiseconsulting.com, or just leave a comment. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share it with someone. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Franchise Focus.